Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Astrology Podcast, episode 129. I am your intrepid star guide, APM, and today we're beginning a new series exploring the archetypal journey through the zodiac, starting with Aries, the cosmic warrior. Some gentle reminders. We have a newsletter called the Daily Stargazer for exclusive and premium content. We are on Instagram at the Outlaw Astrology. We are on YouTube at the Outlaw Astrology, and also on Pinterest. You may find that link and all the others I've mentioned in the show notes. And welcome back, and thank you very much for tuning in. So now we're going to step into it straight away. So here we go, and if you hear a little sound in the background, I'm one of those people that really likes to hear shushing noises while sleeping and pretty much anything. So that is my fan providing that white noise for me. We're going to call this one the Cosmic Warrior Awakens. Now, here's the thing about zodiac types. They're archetypes. And one you might hear for Aries, which thereabouts will start if we're talking about the sun, but we're going to speak very generally. I'm not going to speak specifically about placements so much as I'm talking about Aries energy. And Aries energy is known as the warrior, but if warrior energy does not work for you, the guardian, the defender, the protector, that sort of energy is also Mars energy. Now, Aries has an affinity and is guided by Mars, the planet of the red planet. The planet some might call war, which not necessarily, but it's defending, and its right, proper relationship is defending that which needs to be defended and protecting that which needs to be protected. So you get warrior energy when you've decided that people deserve clean drinking water, or if the decision is to protect the environment, animals, etc., that would be defending, protector, guardian, warrior energy. It doesn't have to always be about war per se. It is that pulse of desire. So one of the archetypes, besides Cosmic Warrior, as I said, and Guardian, would also be the primordial fire. And this is exploring that first spark of consciousness, the initial impulse that drives creation itself. That is called hunger. That is called desire. That is called wanting. That can be, on the downside, manipulated in order to have people wanting things, desiring things that may not be in their best interest, or things they actually do not really desire at all. And so Mars can be also seen as the divine will, examining how this Aries energy is fueled by Mars energy, which is, I'm going that way. I'm motivated to do this. So some of the keywords for Mars would be motivated, desire, hunger, assertiveness. Those are your typical ways that we who exist and live under empire might define it. But Mars will is that will. Anger is another one. Anger is necessary. Anger, as someone wants to quote a character I rather like from American Gods, anger gets things done. That wasn't his exact wording, but we're getting the spirit of the thing rather than the exact wording. But anger gets things done. It truly does. Revolutions stop because people get angry. Movements stop because people get angry. Protests stop because people get angry. Making a change may also stop because someone goes, anger, I'm done with this kind of energy. So it propels us beyond comfort. Mars is the energy that says, I'm climbing that mountain, I'm leaping over that ocean, I'm doing this, and I understand that you think it's impossible, but it's happening, and that can lead to learning, to growing, to evolving. Okay, and also we've got some impressions and expressions of Aries energy, and that is mythological. And usually we get that kind of energy when we're talking about the god Aries. And god Aries was very warlike, loved war games, and, now that's different from the energy of Mars from the Roman pantheon. The Greek god, war god, was a bit more like a knight in the tarot faces pantheon, court cards. We'll get to that in the future. But it's kind of like that energy. For those of you in the tarot, it's kind of like knight energy. It's constantly on the move. It's always looking at the end of its own finger. What's going on over there? That sort of energy. That would be Mars energy. And then we move to the Mars, the name of the god of war in the Roman pantheon. And what's different there is that this Mars is cooler-headed and a bit more strategic. He didn't just say, let's just blow it all up. He's like, okay, I'm not trying to just blow everything up. Yes, I would like to bring this, whatever's going on, to conclusion, but let's be strategic about it. And also considering the fact that Mars energy isn't just about it standing up when standing up needs to be done. It's creating systems that didn't exist because anger motivated something, or the need to protect or to defend or to guard motivated something. You could also see Aries energy in Eris, which is similar. And Eris is the god of discord and retribution, and excuse me, dry throat today. And that particular goddess, is known for turning up at a party, in particular a wedding, that she was not invited to because everyone in there found her to be odious and that they did not like her. And so she throws an apple in to a group of goddesses and say with either she says it to the fairest or the apple it says to the fairest. And that story gets turned into a fairy tale in which an evil 13th fairy turns up at a soiree that she was not invited to, angry that she had been left out, and curses our little heroine, which I believe is Snow White, which starts off our story. Okay, so that's Eris is also Mars-type energy, or Aries-type energy, and so is Athena, springing, fully formed from Zeus's head, and that's the birth of Mithra from stone, and from other Indra slaying Vritra. Okay, so I'm going past Greek, but you'll find this kind of Aries energy pushing forward and blazing trails. Going to Mars, going to the moon, that's also Mars energy. Okay, and so we're going to also look at the hero's initiation. So psychologically, we're looking at this as a call to adventure. And if you haven't heard of the hero's journey, if you're a writer or creator, you've probably heard of it. Joseph Campbell did a long series on it, and everything is set off by the call to adventure. And that's why we leave the known world to discover our true nature. So we've all had that, like when you go to if you have gone to university or even a trade school, that is still going to be a call to adventure. In my own life, for example, when I got training, because I work in the wellness field and have worked in the wellness field for quite a while, going to school to get the training to work in the field required buckling down, but it also required me to step outside of my known world in order to do so. So going to university, moving to a new country, a new city, it is that initial spark, a call to adventure, as, you know, in every story. Like, for example, Harry Potter gets the call to go to Hogwarts. That'd be a great example, by the way. If I've not said, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan and watch that series every spooky season. Okay, so call to adventure, but there's also necessary courage. And this is how Aries energy provides that vital needed to overcome inertia and begin the journey of self-discovery, which is also the Fool card, the pages, that sort of energy. The Fool card in particular in Tarot is that whole moving forward thing. It's that whole push beyond your comfort zone. It's that whole desire to prove yourself, to blaze, to pioneer a trail that didn't exist before. And that energy can make a difference in how the world is seen or how you impact the world. Okay? So you're going to need courage to be able to step outside of one's comfort zone. Mars energy is like, I'll take that step. And we're looking at beginnings. Every authentic start requires boldness and vulnerability, action, and surrender. So you'll notice there's equal parts one and the other. Aries energy tends to be bold. And also, you don't know what you don't know when you first start a journey out. So at the beginning of a journey, it's all optimism, it's all hope, it's all joy, it's all yay! Because there have been no hard lessons, no hard knocks. For example, new moon energy is very Aries energy, very Mars type energy, bit more reflective, but yeah, Aries energy, Mars energy. And so beginnings require you to be able to step out. But you're not in a position of the know, which makes you vulnerable. You have to take action, but you also have to surrender the fact that you don't know everything and that you're going to make mistakes. Because courage also to start, but to continue in the face of mistakes, in the face of challenges, in the face of obstacles. Now, if we're going to be talking about warrior energy, the shadow expressions of Aries are as follows: recklessness, aggression, egocentric action. We're going to look at let's look at historical and cultural. Starting with, for example, Greek mythology. And you're going to find that in heroes like Bellerophon, who felt a little vainglorious. Do look him up. He's actually quite a fascinating person. So most of the heroes of Greek mythology have very Aries energy. Heracles, otherwise known as Hercules to the Romans, is a prime example of this. 12 labors, and what happened was, he was the son of Zeus, and his stepmother, Hera, was not thrilled about this. It was proof that her husband, Zeus, the king of the gods, and she was the queen of the gods, was being unfaithful, and he was often unfaithful. And Hercules was one of many children, and she didn't take it well. So he had a lovely little family and a lovely little life, and she plagued him with terrors and rages, which resulted in the loss of his family. It was just over-the-top rage that he couldn't control, which resulted in him losing his family. In order to atone, he was set to 12 labors. And during those labors, one of them is, to retrieve the golden fleece, for example. But Hercules is a unique character in that he is very the definition of masculinity, and one might also say toxic masculinity, kind of a bit of a, maybe a nice fellow, but a bit of a bonehead. Sorry, but yes. And one of those labors, we're talking about recklessness, he had a mentor. The mentor is known as Chiron. Now, if Chiron is an asteroid, planetoid, comet-like celestial body in orbit most of the time between Jupiter and Saturn, sometimes of the year, but sometimes it's in orbit between Saturn and Uranus at different parts of the year. Okay? So, as a rule, it's about our wounded healer. And Chiron in the myth, which is a centaur who became the leader of the centaurs and their prince, he was known for mentoring heroes, of which Hercules was one, and through recklessness, Hercules injures Chiron, and Chiron then has a wound, that agonizingly painful wound that is hard to heal, hard to treat, and so he must live with, and eventually he sacrifices his own life for the Titan Prometheus, hence that surrender, to be saved from his suffering, and then he's put in the sky as a constellation. Some say Centaurus and some say Sagittarius, depends on the lineage, okay? So you've got that shadow expression of recklessness. His mentor is harmed. Aggression. His actions cause the death of his family. Egocentric action. Some of the stories we hear about a lot of heroes, including Heracles and Hercules, is much more about vainglory, meaning seeking glory for its own sake with no real purpose beyond that. And so, if we look at mythological characters, you'll see the light and the shadow. By the way, it is normal for people to have light and shadow. Let's get past the idea that this light is all there is and that shadow is a terrible, horrible thing. Everybody has a past. Everybody has shadows within themselves. Everybody has light within themselves. And I'm saying this very broadly and very generally, but this is a fact for most of us. There's going to be our shadow days, our light days. And let's also stop naturalizing stereotypes about Aries. Aries, yes, can be reckless, but they can be brave, pioneering. They can lead the charge. They can stand up for things when they're wrong. That kind of Aries energy is something that we all have within us. Everybody has Aries in their chart. Everybody has Aries with house with Aries on the cusp, or Aries contained within that house, depending on the house system that you use. And so, those are some of the shadow expressions. So when you want to take it, impulsive is another expression. But that can be turned into initiative. So finding practical ways to channel the raw energy that is Aries for purposeful action. So it is, you're angry, but you temper that anger with a little calmness so that you can share, for example, your feelings in a relationship. When a friend or a family member steps over a boundary, that's that Mars energy, the Aries energy, pushing forward to say, wait a second, that's a boundary I'm protecting and I must enforce it. Enforcing, also Mars energy, and also a very Aries theme. So, impulsivity can be seen as spontaneous, and it all depends on whom you ask. So we want to make certain when we see impulsive, reckless, we're not just assuming that this is just happens magically. Recklessness, impulsivity is from the perspective of the person watching the Aries person, not the Aries person. Please note, when you see this zodiacally, keep in mind that an Aries person is usually not going to call themselves reckless. They're going to, or impulsive. They're saying, I'm being spontaneous, I'm taking initiative, which depending on the person and their chart, looks differently. So when you hear reckless, aggressive, egocentric, etc., keep in mind that is from the perspective of those outside of the person with the placement, with this energy, okay? So it's not a question or a case of Aries always being reckless and having to guard against that. I do not advocate for guarding against traits. Awareness is what we're seeking, not guarding. Everybody has moments of impulsivity, and whether it's impulsive or spontaneous is a matter of opinion and a matter of perspective. So, Aries also has initiative. It is a cardinal sign. It wants to set it off. It wants to get its hands dirty. It wants to get in there. It wants to go where everybody else is not a little bit more timid to go. And channeling our Aries energy, By the way, mine is in the third house. No. Yes, it is. Whole signs, it is in the third house. And so when it comes to me, myself, and my placement, my Aries energy tends to be mental. It tends to be, starts mentally before it gets into my feet. So there's a process. It starts in the mind, gets into the heart, and then I get into movement. That's how it works for me, so that's how I channel. But each of us has our own individual way of engaging with Aries energy, and so I invite you to ponder where Aries is in your chart and how you might engage it. Now, some of the things, correspondences to Mars energy and Aries energy is spicy things, spicy foods, spicy scents, things that require action, things that require bravery, courage. So looking back on any times when you had to be brave, when you had to speak up even when it was uncomfortable, when you had to stand up when it was uncomfortable, when you had to make a choice even though your comfort zone and your nervous system said, don't do this, those are ways of channeling Aries energy, that raw energy, into purposeful action. Starting something, initiating something is also Aries energy as well. Because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and the plan there is to be the first. Not the best, the first. You know, if nobody's climbed this mountain, nobody's gone to uni, nobody's become a doctor, nobody's done this, nobody's moved to another country that they've never been to but always wanted to live in, that is Aries energy. And the spiritual dimension of the protector, the guardian, the warrior archetype is how to face challenges directly. And how that facing challenges dead on can become a path to knowledge and to liberation. And one of the ways to do that is asking, what angers me? What do I want to protect? What do I want to stand up for? What do I stand for? What injustices will I fight for? Because another thing is fighting injustice. That's also Aries energy. That's Mars energy in its rawness, but it's also Aries energy. So those are some of the questions to help clarify a path to self-knowledge and liberation, because that's the whole point of the exercise here. Now, having said that, I think this is a good stopping point for today. And what we're going to say is the key takeaway. And it is this. Every meaningful journey begins with a single courageous act. That means taking action to begin with. And so the Aries archetype teaches us that stepping into the unknown isn't just necessary for growth, it's the very essence of being alive. And so I think what we're going to do, the next episode, we're going to explore Taurus, and this is the keeper of the sacred earth. And it's how the hero establishes foundations after the initial leap into the unknown. So once again, if you study tarot, that first card, the card 0, and pretty much 0 of any zodiac, particularly the cardinal signs, will be like an Aries energy. It'll be that initial jump into the unknown. And so Taurus, we're going to talk about Taurus energy. We hang out on Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Those links will be in the show notes. Once again, the Daily Stargazer is constantly putting out content on the daily about astrology, etc., and my thoughts. There is a paid and free version. Please feel free to have a look and learn more in the show notes. And thank you very much for listening. And peace and astro magic. Until next time.